The Bloodline. Chapter 1. The Discovery. My name is Dr. Maya Patel, and I know my identity is built on genetic data, which makes it particularly cruel that a DNA test just destroyed everything I thought I knew about myself. I'm a genetic counselor at Helix Biogenomics in Boston. For 6 years, I've helped people navigate their genetic heritage, interpret health risks, and occasionally reunite with biological relatives. I know the statistics. 1 in 20 DNA tests reveals non-paternity. 1 in 30 uncovers a previously unknown sibling. I've delivered these revelations to strangers with clinical professionalism, always emphasizing that genetics doesn't define identity. I should have followed my own advice. The internal employee testing initiative was supposed to be routine. Richard, my boss, insisted all staff take our latest ancestry package as quality assurance. I agreed reluctantly. I already knew my genetic story, Gujarati on both sides, 5 generations documented, ancestors buried in Ahmedabad. I was a walking advertisement for genetic stability. The results came back in August. 47% South Asian, 6% Middle Eastern, 47% Northern European, British, Irish, Scandinavian. I've analyzed thousands of these reports. I know what the numbers mean, and what they mean, unambiguously, is that one of my parents is not who they claim to be. I'm sitting in my office now, a glass cubicle overlooking Boston Harbor, decorated with diplomas and a quote about embracing genetic diversity. My coffee has gone cold 3 times while I've run the analysis again. Different lab protocols, different equipment, same results. My colleague Jennifer knocks on the glass. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just a complicated case," I lie. After she leaves, I pull up my parents' profiles. They tested too, eager to see what genetic surprises might emerge. My father's results, 98% South Asian. My mother's, 99% South Asian. Mathematically impossible, parents, for my results. I run the inheritance calculations on paper, something I haven't done manually since graduate school. If both biological parents are 98–99% South Asian, the probability of offspring being 47% European is approximately 0.0001. The number is so small, it rounds to 0. This isn't genetics. This is evidence. I should report this through proper channels. I should contact HR. Instead, I do something that could get me fired and possibly prosecuted. I access the extended familial matching database using my administrative credentials. The results populate within seconds. Close. Familial match, number 1, male, age 68, Vermont, 49.8% shared DNA. Parent-child relationship, 99.9% confidence. Close familial match, number 2, female, age 64, Massachusetts, 50% shared DNA. Parent-child relationship, 99.7% confidence. My hands shake as I override their privacy settings. Match 1, James Whitmore, Burlington, Vermont. Retired. 3 children listed on his family tree. I'm not among them. Match 2, Catherine Brennan, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Professor of art history at Harvard. No family tree uploaded. Just a note in her profile dated 6 months ago. Seeking biological relatives from 1988–1989 timeframe. She's been looking for me. I pull up Catherine's university page. Auburn hair going gray, sharp green eyes. A photo shows her hands holding a Renaissance art book, hands with double-jointed thumbs. The same unusual condition I have, the same crooked pinky fingers. Before I can process what this means, my office phone rings. It's Richard. "Maya, can you come to my office? Now." My stomach drops. "Has security flagged my access?" "Just come, we have a visitor." Richard's office has a view of the same harbor I've been staring at. Sitting across from his desk is a woman with auburn hair going gray and sharp green eyes. Catherine Brennan, my biological mother. She stands when I enter. Her eyes fill with tears. I received notification this morning that someone had accessed my profile, Catherine says quietly. Someone from Helix, someone with administrative credentials. I called Richard and asked if it was possible you work here. When he confirmed, she stops. I knew it had to be you. I don't understand, but I do. I understand perfectly. You were adopted, Catherine says. Privately. Through an intermediary. It was complicated and probably illegal. I was 28 and unmarried. The biological father was already married. We made a choice we've regretted ever since. Richard clears his throat. Maya, I think you need time to process this. Catherine has given me her contact information. When you're ready? I want to meet him, I interrupt. The biological father. I want to meet him tomorrow. Catherine nods slowly. His name is James Whitmore. He's living in Vermont now. I'll arrange it. After they leave, I sit alone in my office and stare at the analysis on my screen. I'm not who I thought I was. And somewhere in the genetic database, the one I helped build, the one I've relied on professionally for 6 years, my entire secret has been waiting to be found. Chapter 2, The Letter and the Mystery. I drive to my parents' house in Newton that evening. The cream-colored Colonial looks smaller than it did in childhood. Or maybe I've just grown larger, carrying the weight of secrets, the burden of a life built on a lie. My mother opens the door, flower on her hands. She's making undhiyu, my favorite, which she makes every time I'm depressed or stressed. The routine gesture now feels like a performance. Maya, what a lovely surprise. She stops, reading my face. What's wrong? Mom, I need you to tell me the truth about something. We sit at the kitchen table where we've shared every significant moment of my life. Where she taught me to roll roti. Where she helped me study for medical school exams. Where I learned that every relationship is built partially on lies. I took a DNA test, I say. Through work, I'm 47% European. The color leaves her face. I know what the genetics mean, I continue. I've analyzed thousands of these cases. I know you're not my biological mother, so I need you to tell me why. My mother sits down. She doesn't try to deny it. We couldn't have children, she says finally. We tried for years, treatments, doctors, prayers. Nothing worked. Your father was devastated. We both were. She pauses. Then someone, a friend of a friend, mentioned they knew a woman who was pregnant and couldn't keep the baby. An American woman. The biological father was married. They wanted the child to go to a family who could provide stability. How much? $50,000. In 1989, that was everything we had. We took out a second mortgage, borrowed from my brother. We emptied our savings. So you bought me. We saved you? Her voice breaks. The woman, Catherine, she was giving you away anyway. We gave you a home, a family, a culture. We loved you from the moment we saw you. Did you ever plan to tell me? No, we thought it would only hurt you. You were happy. You had a good life. I had a life built on false information. She reaches for my hand. I pull away. There's something else, she says quietly. She walks to the cabinet above the refrigerator, the one that's always been off limits, and pulls out a manila envelope. Catherine gave us this. She said if you ever found out, you should have it. My name is written on the front in elegant handwriting. For Maya, when she's ready. I drive to Castle Island and open the envelope in my car. Inside is a photograph and a letter. The photograph shows a young woman, maybe 28, holding a newborn, me. Standing beside her, but not quite touching, is a man in his 30s. He's looking at the baby with an expression I can't read. James and Catherine, my biological parents. The only photograph of the three of us together. The letter is handwritten. Dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then the life I gave you has cracked open and revealed its foundation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we gave you away. I'm sorry we lied. But mostly, I'm sorry that you had to find out this way. I want you to understand something. Giving you up was the most carefully considered decision of my life. Not easy. Not something I've ever truly accepted, but necessary. James was married. His wife, Margaret, had just miscarried their third child. She was fragile, devastated. James and I had been having an affair for 2 years. When I became pregnant, we both understood. Keeping you would destroy his marriage, his career, his other children's lives. I was 28 years old. I was finishing my PhD in art history. I had no family support, no financial resources. James offered money, but it felt like being sold. So we decided the only ethical choice was to find you a family who could love you properly. There are things you need to know about why we made this choice. First, there was an incident. It wasn't anyone's fault, but it created a complication that made our situation impossible. Ask James about Emily Schafer. Ask him about Burlington, 1988. Second, you have half-siblings through James, Thomas, Daniel, and Grace. They don't know you exist. Margaret never knew. James has kept you a secret for 35 years to protect them. Third, there's a genetic marker in my family, early-onset Alzheimer's. My mother had it. I'm beginning to show symptoms now. I'm 42 as I write this. There's roughly a 50% chance you carry the gene. Fourth, I'm leaving you something in my will. Instructions are with my lawyer, Catherine Morrison, my cousin. If anything happens to me, she'll contact you. Fifth, you are wanted. You are loved. Every day since I gave you up, I've thought about you. Wondered what you look like. Whether you're happy, whether you hate us. I hope you don't hate us. With all my love, Catherine Brennan. I read the letter 3 times. Each reading reveals something new. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't shameful abandonment. This was a carefully considered sacrifice, which somehow makes it worse. Because it means my existence as a person has always been secondary to other people's circumstances. Ask James about Emily Schafer. Ask him about Burlington, 1988. I search those terms. News archives from 1988 appear. A young woman named Emily Schafer found drowned in Lake Champlain. Last seen at a private lake house. Police investigation ongoing. Case closed as accidental drowning. No mention of James Whitmore. No connection to Catherine. Just a tragedy from 35 years ago. Why would Catherine mention this? Chapter 3, The Professional Analysis. The next morning, I do something I've never done before. I treat my own genetic data as a professional case study. I pull up the raw genetic data from my DNA test and load it into our analysis software. The program maps my chromosomes, identifying inherited segments from each parent. On chromosome 5, I find a segment of 8.7 centimorgans that perfectly matches with James Whitmore's profile. On chromosome 12, another segment matches Catherine Brennan, 6.2 centimorgans. These aren't random matches. These are biological proof. But something else catches my attention. I zoom into the sequence data, the actual ATCG base pairs that make up my DNA. There's a notation in the lab records time-stamped 3 weeks ago. Unusual polymorphism in APOE region. Genetic marker for early onset Alzheimer's disease. Probability of phenotypic expression, 40–50%. Recommend counseling. Catherine mentioned this in her letter. The marker is real, and according to our database, she doesn't have a genetic counselor. She's being left to interpret this alone. My colleague Marcus stops by my cubicle. You doing okay? You look like you haven't slept. Personal stuff, nothing professional. Well, if you need to talk. He hesitates. Look, I don't want to pry, but I noticed some unusual access patterns in your account yesterday. Security flagged it as a potential privacy violation. I told them I'd talk to you first before escalating. My blood runs cold. What kind of access patterns? You reviewed someone's genetic profile without a request, multiple times. We have strict protocols about that. I'm sure there's an explanation, but there's no explanation, I say quietly. I accessed private profiles without authorization. I violated confidentiality protocols. You need to report it. Marcus looks uncomfortable. Are you sure? We could probably work something out. No, report it. I have to take care of something first. I gather my things and leave the office. I drive to Burlington, Vermont, without planning the trip. Catherine's phone number is in my contacts from the email Richard sent. I call her from the highway. Maya, is everything okay? I need to see him, James, today. There's a pause. He's not dying, by the way. I realized I never told you that when Richard introduced us. I was so shocked that I forgot to mention it. The cancer diagnosis he told me about when I reconnected with him. He was exaggerating. It's early stage, manageable. He didn't want to pressure you, so he made it sound worse than it is. Something in me breaks at this news. He's not dying. This isn't a deathbed confession. This is intentional. This is someone reaching out. I still need to see him, I say. The lake house appears around noon. It's massive and beautiful and haunting. A sprawling structure on the shore of Lake Champlain, surrounded by pine trees, with a dock stretching into gray-blue water. James Whitmore is sitting in the sunroom when I arrive. He's not as thin as I expected. His hair is silver but full. His eyes are sharp and intelligent. He looks like he has years left. Maya, he stands. Thank you for coming. I want you to tell me the truth, I say, all of it. No version of events designed to manipulate me or protect yourself. The actual truth. He sits back down. That's fair. Chapter 4, The Confession and the Complication. Emily Schafer, James begins, was Margaret's younger sister. She was 24. She came to stay with us that summer of 1988. I wait for him to continue, my mind running through the newspaper reports I read, looking for connections. Catherine and I were having an affair, he continues. Margaret didn't know. I was trying to figure out how to tell her, but I was a coward. I kept putting it off. Then one night, Emily found out. How? She found a letter Catherine had written. She didn't read the whole thing. She just saw enough to understand what was happening. She came to me the next morning, terrified and angry. She told me she was going to tell Margaret unless I ended the affair immediately. And you refused. I told her it was complicated, that she didn't understand adult relationships. I told her that Margaret and I had problems that existed long before Catherine. I basically gaslit my wife's younger sister into thinking she was overreacting. He stops, takes a breath. 3 days later, there was a party at my lake house. It was an annual thing, business associates, friends, colleagues. Emily was drinking. She was angry at me. She kept making pointed comments about infidelity, about lying to people you love. At one point, she pulled me aside and said she was done waiting. She was going to find Margaret right now and tell her everything. What did you do? I panicked. I said terrible things to her. I told her no one would believe her, that I'd deny it, that she'd just be the drunk, hysterical sister. I told her to go cool off. And she went to the lake. Yes. She walked toward the dock, and I let her go. You let her drown. I didn't think she'd actually swim, not in the dark, not that drunk. I thought she was just angry and needed air. But someone at the party, a woman I barely knew, saw Emily go into the water. She asked me if I should follow her. I said no. Emily needs to cool down. He looks directly at me. Emily went into that lake and she never came out. They found her body 3 days later. I feel physically ill. The investigation afterward was thorough, James continues. The detective was convinced I had something to do with it, but my alibi held up. I was inside talking to a state senator when Emily went into the water. Dozens of witnesses. The case was closed as accidental drowning. But you didn't save her. No, I didn't save her. I had the opportunity to stop her, to go after her, to call for help when I realized what was happening. I did nothing. I let her die because I was afraid of what she would tell my wife. That's not an accident. That's negligence at best. And at worst, I let someone die to protect my secret, he finishes. I've spent 35 years living with that. And the moment Emily died, everything changed. Catherine was 8 months pregnant with you, James explains. The police investigation into Emily's death naturally expanded to include people in my life. They found out about Catherine. They found out about our affair. They found my old NDA with Lisa Trent, a woman I dated years before, and they started wondering if I had a pattern of using money to make problems disappear. They thought you'd killed Emily. They couldn't prove it, but they suspected it. And Catherine was terrified. She realized that if they connected her pregnancy to me, if they figured out I'd fathered a child with my mistress, the timeline would point to motive. Emily found out about the affair, threatened to expose it, and then died. It would look like I had a reason to kill her. So you erased me. We gave you to a family who could love you properly, a family with no connection to our scandal, no connection to Emily Schafer's death. We thought we were protecting you, and maybe we were, but we were also protecting ourselves. He stands up and walks to the window, looking out at the lake. After Emily's death, I threw myself into work. I became hyper-successful. I made a lot of money. I provided for Catherine financially. She never had to ask for anything. I helped the Patels whenever they needed it. I paid for your education anonymously. I spent 35 years trying to atone for letting someone die. But you were never prosecuted. You were never held accountable. No, I wasn't. Which is why I'm telling you now, because you deserve to know the man I was. And because I want you to understand something important. He turns back to face me. I made a terrible choice. I was selfish and weak. I let someone die. But giving you to Rajesh and Priya Patel, that was the right choice, not to protect myself or Catherine, to protect you. You deserved better than to be raised in the shadow of Emily Schafer's death and my guilt. I also deserved better than to live a lie. Yes, you did. And I'm sorry for that. Chapter 5, The Unraveling. I drive back to Boston that night without sleeping. The next morning, I walk into Helix Biogenomics and request a meeting with the ethics board. Marcus is there, along with 3 other senior staff members. I accessed confidential genetic profiles without authorization, I tell them directly. I violated privacy protocols multiple times. I want to report my own breach. What follows is a 6-hour investigation. They review my access logs, interview staff, determine that no genetic data was sold or leaked. My access was personal, not criminal. Why did you do it? Richard asks. The profiles belonged to my biological parents. I discovered I was adopted through DNA testing. I used my access to find them without proper authorization. The room goes quiet. That's understandable, one of the board members says quietly. But it doesn't change protocol violations. I know, I'm resigning effective immediately, and I'm recommending the company implement new safeguards for situations like this. Employees should have to recuse themselves from any genetic profiles that might involve family members. There should be mandatory oversight for any professional access to personal data. They accept my resignation without argument. That evening, I call Rohan. We need to talk, I say, in person. Rohan meets me at our favorite restaurant. He's nervous. He can probably tell from my voice that something's wrong. I'm adopted, I tell him. I found out a week ago through a DNA test. My biological father is a man named James Whitmore. My biological mother is Catherine Brennan. And my entire identity is based on information that my parents, Rajesh and Priya, never told me. Rohan listens. He doesn't interrupt. I also quit my job today, I continue, because I violated professional ethics accessing my own genetic data, and I'm postponing the wedding. For how long? I don't know, months, years, maybe forever. Because I don't know who I am anymore, and I can't marry someone while I'm figuring that out. Maya. My biological family has Alzheimer's running through the genetics. 47% chance I'll develop early onset disease starting in my 60s. My biological father participated in covering up a woman's death. My biological mother has been searching for me for 35 years. And I have no idea what any of that means for my future. Rohan is quiet for a long time. My family won't accept this, he finally says. The adoption, the uncertainty, the postponement, they'll see it as dishonor. They'll want to call off the wedding entirely. I know. And He looks at me with genuine sadness. I love you, Maya, but I love the Maya I thought I knew. And I don't know if I can love whoever you're becoming. Then we're done, I say. It's better to figure that out now. It is, he agrees. We sit together for a while longer, mourning the future we thought we'd have. Then he leaves, and I sit alone in the restaurant, feeling something I haven't allowed myself to feel until now: relief. Chapter 6. Reconstruction. I don't go home for a month. Instead, I find a small apartment in Cambridge. I reach out to Catherine and ask if we can meet regularly, not as mother and daughter, but as two people trying to understand a complicated history. Over coffee, she tells me about her research on Renaissance art. She tells me about the symptoms of Alzheimer's she's been experiencing, moments of forgetfulness that terrify her. She tells me about the genetic counseling she's been doing on her own, teaching herself about the APOE4 marker, about preventive strategies. I couldn't tell you about this in the letter, she says. I couldn't load you with the burden of my disease before you even knew I existed. But I'm telling you now, and I'm telling you that you should get professionally tested. Not by someone at your old job, by someone external who can give you proper counseling. I schedule the appointment. The genetic counselor I see is a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. I tell her the basics of my situation. She runs the tests and calls me back a week later with the results. You have one APOE4 allele, she tells me. It's the heterozygous form, one copy, not two. Your risk is elevated but not extreme. The literature suggests a 30–40% chance of developing late-onset Alzheimer's by age 85, and a smaller risk of early onset before 60. What can I do? There's a lot of research now on cognitive reserve. You're educated, which is protective. You need to maintain physical activity, social engagement, cognitive challenge. You need to manage cardiovascular risk. High blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, all increase risk. And you need to start thinking about this now, not when symptoms appear. I leave that office with a fitness plan, a referral to a psychiatrist, and a sense that my life has acquired a timeline. Not a countdown to death, just an awareness that my brain has a vulnerability I'll need to manage. Over the next month, I reconnect with my adoptive parents. I go to my mother's house, and we sit in the same kitchen where she'd told me about my adoption. I'm calmer now. I understand that Rajesh and Priya made the best decision they could with the information they had. I'm not angry anymore, I tell them. I was, but I'm not now. We were scared, my mother says. We were scared that if you knew, you'd feel unloved. That you'd think your adoption meant we wanted a child less, not more. I know that now. You gave me more love than most kids get. I just wish you'd trusted me with the truth earlier. We should have, my father agrees. That was our mistake, not adopting you, but not being honest about it. We sit together for a long time. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. I get a job at a different genetic counseling company. I'm one of the founders of a new initiative called Genetic Surprise Support, a program designed to help people who discover unexpected information through DNA testing. The work is personal. I know what it feels like to have your identity fractured by genetic data. I know the panic and confusion and grief, and I use that knowledge to help people navigate it. One day, I get a call from James. He wants to meet, I agree, but I choose the location, a coffee shop in Boston, neutral territory. I've been seeing a therapist, he tells me, for the past month. We've been talking about Emily Schafer, about guilt, about the choices I made. And I've decided I'm going to come forward. About Emily, I'm going to tell the police that I had the opportunity to prevent her death and I didn't. I'm going to stop pretending that was acceptable. That could destroy you. I know, but Emily's family never got justice. They never got answers. And I've been carrying this secret for 35 years as a way of avoiding accountability. I think it's time. Grace doesn't know about this? Not yet. I'm telling you first because you deserve to know. You're my daughter, Maya, and even though I don't get to say that officially, I want you to know that I'm trying to be better. The year after my DNA test, I fly to Seattle to meet Grace. She's a pediatrician, not a genetic counselor. I'd mixed up that detail when we first spoke. But she's intelligent and warm and immediately feels like family in a way I wasn't expecting. Dad told me about Emily Schafer, she says over coffee. About what he's planning to do. I'm scared for him, but I'm also proud that he's finally taking responsibility. He didn't have to. No one would have known. I know. That's what makes it matter. Grace and I spend a week together. We talk about our shared genetics, about the Alzheimer's risk, about the things that bind us. We also talk about our different lives, our different choices, our different ways of being Whitmore's daughters. When I leave Seattle, Grace hugs me tight. You're family, she says. That's not conditional anymore. That's just fact. 6 months after my DNA test, the Burlington Police Department reopens the Emily Schafer case. James provides a detailed statement about the night she died. He explains his negligence, his cowardice, his choices. The investigation concludes that while James didn't cause Emily's death, his actions, or lack thereof, contributed to the circumstances that led to her drowning. He's not prosecuted for the death, but he is charged with filing a false police report for having initially told investigators that he'd looked for Emily when he hadn't. He pleads guilty and receives probation. It's not justice for Emily. Her death was ruled accidental, and the law doesn't punish negligence retroactively. But it's James accepting responsibility. It's the truth finally being documented. Emily's sister, who has spent 35 years wondering what happened to her, finally gets answers. She doesn't forgive James, but she stops wondering. A year after my DNA test, Catherine is diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. The doctor says it's consistent with early-stage Alzheimer's. She starts preventive treatment and enters a support group. "I'm not afraid anymore," she tells me during one of our coffee dates. "I was terrified when I first got diagnosed. But then you came into my life, and you started this whole program to help people like us, and I realized fear doesn't protect us from anything, but community does." She enrolls in my support group. So does James. So do dozens of other people who've discovered unexpected genetic vulnerabilities through DNA testing. And I help all of them navigate the uncertainty. 2 years after my DNA test, I'm invited to give a TEDx talk about genetic identity. I title it, "The Bloodline, DNA, Destiny, and the Stories We Tell About Ourselves." I talk about how genetics explains our biology but not our identity. I talk about how secrets can be hidden in DNA for decades. I talk about how discovering unexpected genetic information can fracture your sense of self, but it can also force you to reconstruct yourself more authentically. And I talk about my own journey. I discovered I was adopted through a genetic test, I tell the audience. And I'm not going to lie, it was devastating. It felt like my entire life was a lie. But here's what I learned. Identity isn't determined by genetics or by the circumstances of your birth. Identity is something you construct every day through the choices you make, the people you surround yourself with, the work you do that matters. I pause. My biological parents made a choice to give me away. They did it for complicated reasons, some selfish, some noble, mostly human. My adoptive parents made a choice to raise me without ever telling me the truth. My own choice now is to build a life that honors all these complications without being defined by them. The talk goes viral. People email me with their own stories of genetic surprises. Some are beautiful reunions. Some are devastating discoveries. Most are complicated and messy and real. And I help people navigate all of it. 3 years after my DNA test, I'm in a relationship with someone who knows the whole story. Her name is Priya, not related to my adoptive mother, but the coincidence feels meaningful. She's a cardiologist at a different hospital, and she understands the weight of genetic knowledge because she lives with it professionally. "Does it bother you?" I ask her one night. "That I don't know what my future holds? That I might develop Alzheimer's?" "Does your past bother you?" she counters. "That you don't know who your biological grandparents were or why they made certain choices?" "No." "Exactly. We don't know anyone's future. We just know our own, and I know you. That's enough." Epilogue. 5 years later. The Emily Schafer case becomes the subject of a true crime podcast. James agrees to be interviewed. He doesn't try to minimize his role or shift blame. He simply tells the truth. He was selfish. He made a bad choice. He let someone die because he was afraid. Emily's sister, Linda Schafer Morrison, listens to the podcast. She reaches out to James and agrees to meet him. The meeting is difficult and emotional, but afterward, Linda says something I'll never forget. "I spent 35 years angry at you," she says. Angry that Emily died. Angry that no one was held accountable. But listening to you, I realized that you've been in prison too. Just a different kind. And maybe that's not justice, but it's something. James creates the Emily Schafer Memorial Fund for Water Safety Education. It's not redemption. He'll never be redeemed, but it's contribution. Catherine's Alzheimer's progresses slowly. She's now in early stages of moderate cognitive decline, but she remains engaged and present. She's made the decision to participate in clinical trials for early onset treatments. She advocates for genetic counseling and awareness. "I wish I'd known about my risk when I was younger," she tells an interviewer. "I could have made different lifestyle choices. I could have prepared. Knowledge isn't always comfortable, but it's powerful." My adoptive parents, Rajesh and Priya, are proud of the work I do. We have weekly dinners together. The relationship has healed, though not without scars. "You're a better person for knowing the truth," my mother tells me, even when the truth was painful. "I'm not sure I'm better," I say. "I'm just more honest." "Same thing," she replies. Grace and I video chat every week. We've become friends as well as sisters. She's married now with a daughter. That daughter will be my niece. The genetic line continues, with all its complications and gifts. And James, my biological father, has become a complicated but consistent presence in my life. We see each other monthly. We talk about his work on the Emily Schafer case, about Catherine's health, about the genetic counseling program I've built. We're not a traditional father-daughter relationship, but we're real. On the 5th anniversary of my DNA test, I'm standing in my office at the Genetic Counseling Center. My walls are covered with photos. Catherine, Grace, James, my adoptive parents, Priya, my partner. And one photo of just me, a professional headshot, but taken on a good day when I felt solid in my own skin. An email arrives from a potential client. Someone who just discovered they're adopted through a DNA test and doesn't know how to process it. I smile and schedule a consultation, because I know exactly how they feel. And I know that the truth, however painful, however complicated, is always better than the lie.